Hi, welcome to Relish Books. It is time for part 2 in my MacDonald, Lewis, and Tolkien series. So today I'm talking about C.S. Lewis. And again, I really like all of these authors, but I am kind of working in least to greatest. So C.S. Lewis is kind of in the middle, and I really used George MacDonald. I really put him in there because he so heavily influenced Lewis, and also because he's a good example of an extremely metaphorical writer. But really, he was kind of an introduction. The main discussion I want to have is contrasting Lewis to Tolkien and the different strengths of them, but why I ultimately think Tolkien's the better writer. So C.S. Lewis is so interesting in so many ways. Again, he was so heavily influenced by George MacDonald, but the greatest influence in his personal life and what just shaped his whole life going forward was Tolkien, because it was Tolkien who challenged him from. C.S. Lewis was a firm atheist, and Tolkien challenged him to truly consider for the first time, like to truly try to reason out, to consider whether um, Christianity was a possibility. And I feel like C.S. Lewis, if you read any of his writings, you'll see he's very, very smart. And I feel like I could be wrong about this, but I feel like it was sort of like he couldn't resist the challenge of this dare almost. And I love that Tolkien didn't try to argue with him or persuade him, because C.S. Lewis was so brilliant. He just used his own mind on him, told him to um, reason things out, and C.S. Lewis, of course, became a believer. And but he did not join the Catholic Church that Tolkien was a member of, but he joined the Anglican Church. And this difference in religion, of course, affected their friendship over the years. And for a while, they were very close, but they had drifted apart by the end of their lives for a variety of reasons. Um, so C.S. Lewis, though, I don't know if he's even known for any of his writings before his conversion. Possibly, I know he was, he met Tolkien through the kind of the literary world, maybe of teaching. They met at some sort of meeting, because neither of them were published authors yet, or not any of their big stuff had been published. But then C.S. Lewis is known almost exclusively for his writing being very religious. And of course, what he is very famous for among all young people is the Narnia series. And this is a side note, but if you notice, I have these arranged in published order, because that is the only true order. So, but that's a different argument for a different time. But I love the Narnia books. I think they are really fun. They're really great. And as far as metaphor, I believe Tolkien had an issue with them, because he was of the belief that your story should be your story, and fiction should be for what it is. You shouldn't be using it as a metaphor. I think that's very loosely one of his problems with it. Another of his problems was Tolkien was so passionate about all folklores and myths and legends and different belief systems, and he was kind of outraged by the way C.S. Lewis kind of mishmashed a bunch of things like that in his books. Different figures from historical belief systems and legends that he kind of just throws in there whenever he wants. I think it's super fun the way he does that, but Tolkien, took those things so he studied them so seriously that he was upset by that. But I do really like Narnia, and while I agree with Tolkien's issue with metaphor in general, I feel like Narnia is kind of an exception to that, because I don't know any kids who've read Narnia, that didn't love it. Everyone that I've heard talk about it is always like, "Oh yeah, I loved that as a kid." My little sister has read them. I don't know how many times. They're her favorite books of all time. She just reads them and reads them and reads them. They truly appeal to children. And books that are hammering a moral, books that are preaching at kids, kids can feel that. They see through it. They're way smarter than people think when it comes to that. And they don't like it. Nobody really likes to be preached at. And sometimes I think people think that children just won't notice it. And so they stuff this horribly written children's literature full of morals. And children don't enjoy it. Because they sense that they're being talked down to. C.S. Lewis, even though the books have a lot of metaphor, have good morals, it never feels that way. He is a good storyteller, and his storytelling style appeals to children and also to adults. The books are still really fun. He's just a good writer. He writes good dialogue. He's funny. And he's not like cutesy funny. He's like actually funny. Very British humor. But I don't know, it's really fun. He has a great imagination. His stories are exciting and adventurous, and big things happen. There's big adventures. And again, they do have metaphor, but it doesn't push its way in. And obviously, the first book is so strongly, I don't even feel like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is really metaphorical so much as it's just a retelling of a story with a different cast of characters. And people do that all the time in different ways. So I wouldn't even really call that one super metaphorical. I think that comes in more in the later books. And not all of them are as good as the others. I have a soft spot for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's the first one. It's nostalgic. It has just the most unique and exciting feeling to me, the going through the wardrobe into another world, which is also, I said I wasn't really going to talk about it, but that's also why I think it's very, very important to start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because the wardrobe isn't nearly as exciting if you already know what's on the other side and everything about the world. So start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's way better. Anyway, so you start this adventure, and I don't know, that one's just really special to me. But then Prince Caspian is, I don't like that one nearly as much. And then Voyage of the Dawn Treader is super fun. I don't know, they're all really good. Silver Chair is really great. I know that's a lot of people's favorite. That one might be my favorite after The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I don't know. They're all really good. I think The Last Battle is definitely the weakest. I think the only reason anybody enjoys it is for the final chapter, or maybe the final couple chapters. It's really rough, but it is worth it, that final scene. Overall, though, it's a really great series, and everybody loves it. So again, I think in theory, Tolkien was right about the issues that he had with it, but I think Lewis just did a good enough job that nobody really minds it. Nobody really minds too much about him sticking metaphors in there. I mean, I'm sure there are people who do. I shouldn't say nobody, but the majority love the series. I love the series. But in contrast to that, then you have Lewis's space series, his space trilogy. And this is more of a adult series. It's like an adult fantasy. I guess it's considered more science fiction because it's all space. And this is where I really have a problem I would criticize the space trilogy the way that Tolkien criticized Narnia, because C.S. Lewis is selling it as fiction, he's selling it as fantasy, and he's using, this really feels more like, in this series, it feels like, because in Narnia, you can tell that he loves his stories, he loves his characters, they're exciting, they're adventurous, he loves them for the sake of the stories, right? The space trilogy feels like he is using fiction to put forth metaphor, to put forth this thought-provoking material. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with thought-provoking material. I have no problem with this. I really feel like the series is like this exploration of different religious theory and conjecture and metaphor. I have no problem with that, with those writings, if you want to read that kind of thing. But don't tell me that it's just normal fiction, because it's not. Don't tell me that it's like great fantasy that just happens to have some metaphor to it. The point is the metaphor. The point is these thoughts that he's trying to make people have. It is, in my opinion, if it's not marketed that way, it's, in a sense, it's almost manipulative. This isn't what fiction is. This isn't what fiction should be. This isn't the purpose of fiction to me. Again, these are my opinions. But it really is basically this apologetics writing, and that's not the way that it's really, that's not the platform that it's put on. For instance, I think C.S. Lewis is a phenomenal apologetics writer. His Screwtape Letters are incredible. Mere Christianity is like the single most astounding collection, like as an example of the logical reasoning of the human mind. I think Mere Christianity is a marvel of a book. It's amazing, and I love it. And there's other books like that, The Abolition of Man, The Great Divorce. Some of them are told in story form, but they are marketed as apologetics, and that's what they are. And in that sphere, I appreciate them, because I'm reading them. I'm not reading them for fiction. I'm not reading them for a story. I'm reading them to think and to learn, and for them to be thought-provoking. And the Space Trilogy is trying to be this mix of the two, and it does not work for me. I know people who love it. My oldest sister, who we usually agree pretty closely on books, she, growing up, she largely influenced my taste in books because she was always the one giving me stuff to read. This is one of her favorite series. She named her oldest son after one of the characters in this series. She loves it, thinks it's amazing. And I read it, and I did not like it one bit. Not even a little bit. I have a huge problem with all of the books. So there's Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandra, and That Hideous Strength. And all of them, not a single one, they're all, also it's in a trilogy, but there's very little connection between the three. They're three totally different stories. For the most part, they have different characters. And I didn't like any of them. Like, I had different big problems with each one of them. I really, really didn't like them. Maybe at some point I need to give them another try, because, I mean, this was a little aggravating at the time, and I think that my opinion would be the same now, but at the time that I read them, I was middle teens maybe, and, you know, my oldest sister loved them, and I read them, and I was like, I don't like them at all. And she was kind of like, well, you're probably just too young. Like, try again when you're older. I feel like I still remember them well enough that I know that my opinion would be unchanged, but maybe at some point I'll give them another try. But I just think, coming back to this, I just think the metaphor is way too heavy-handed in those books. That's all it is. Again, the three are totally different. In the first one, I just felt desolate and lost. And that's the other thing. The books aren't enjoyable either. I don't feel like the characters are enjoyable. There's just not much to them. So yeah, the first one, I just felt desolate and lost. The second one just felt weird, and then the third one felt really wild and really weird. I don't know. Again, if you're somebody who loves them, I do respect that. I'm not so much complaining about them as trying to pass them off as fiction when they are when they're purely metaphorical. So I have a big problem with those. Again, I love Narnia. I love C.S. Lewis's actual apologetics writings. They're tremendous. Obviously, I don't agree with a lot of them, but for just like thinking material, they're amazing. He was absolutely brilliant. No matter what you think about him as a person, as a writer, whatever, he had a brilliant mind, and I deeply respect that. I just can't get behind too heavy-handedly trying to use fiction for like these pushing your theories on people so thinly veiled through not very well done fiction, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So those are my thoughts on C.S. Lewis. Again, I love Narnia. I love his other writings. It's really just the space trilogy that I feel like is so lacking for me. Again, there's people who love it. And much as I admire Tolkien, I do have to disagree with him a little bit, obviously, because, he read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and was horrified, like, by the first draft of it. He just thought it was terrible. And I'm not going to say that. I really like it. But he does have some legitimate concerns, and I will talk about his beliefs and why I think that his approach to writing is the best, why I think that his writing and storytelling is the most effective of the three of these authors, and just that his approach is the one that I most admire. So I'm going to talk about Tolkien in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.